Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Albert Chiu. In recent days, the Chinese Ministry of State Security released statements over 3 consecutive days advocating for stringent measures against speeches that falsely depict China's economic decline, thereby prioritizing economic developments as a matter of national security. Additionally, the Chinese social media platform Weibo has advised its users to refrain from sharing pessimistic views about the economy. This raises questions about the current state of China's economy. Joining us today are Tao Yi-feng, Associate Professor of National Taiwan University, and Lai I-Chung, Prospect Foundation President. A very warm welcome to both on the show. The Chinese Ministry of State Security has indicated that numerous cliches aimed at disparaging China's economy continue to surface, primarily creating a deceptive narrative and perception of China's decline. The ministry plans to focus on people who are negative about market trends, those who bet on falling prices, skeptics, and manipulators. Bloomberg also reported that Weibo has advised select users against publishing any economy-related pessimistic comments. Moreover, as South China Morning Post reported, a significant number of social media accounts belonging to Chinese economists and investment analysts have been suspended. So my first question goes to Professor Tao. Bloomberg suggests this move underscores Beijing's worries about China's economic future. So how do you interpret the Ministry of State Security's major action?
I think it is another example of the governance crisis under Xi Jinping, in Xi Jinping's China. When I say the governance crisis, I mean now I think actually over last 1 decade, I think the whole bureaucratic system has a logic of, I would say, is upward management, logic of upward management. That is 向上管理. That means everything you care about is Xi Jinping's mentality or Xi Jinping's response. So I think the whole bureaucratic systems, they don't care that much about what's the real problem, but they only care about what Xi Jinping will think about it. So from this point of view, I do think now Xi Jinping is really worried about China's economic situation. And when he worried about the economic situation, the whole bureaucratic system started to do the upward management to manage his perception. And usually this kind of upward management, I think it is a governance crisis because it will have 2 problems. One is the decline of professionalism. For economic problem, usually you rely upon economic technocrat to deal with that. You won't go to the Ministry of State Security. So that is one problem, lack of professionalism. The other problem is everything is national security. So the Ministry of State Security, they have involved in many things. And for the economic issue, actually it is not the first time the Ministry of State Security would like to intervene to ask people in the market don't talk about the economy in negative way. I think in year 2015, when the stock market collapsed, they did the same thing. Yeah.
President Lai, how would you interpret this major action as I just suggested from the Ministry of State Security's major action? Simply from what Professor Tao was mentioning about the upward trend management. And what does that mean? Could you kind of explain further a little bit about that?
I believe that in addition to the so-called upward management of the Xi Jinping himself, trying to create the image of the facade that the Xi Jinping, he does not have to worry that much about the Chinese economy. The Chinese economy is actually in the good conditions. That this action also reflects that the not just the Ministry of State Security, but China itself is very lack of confidence about what the future direction it will be. So that they are so sensitive to all the negative comments or even the negative speculation about the future of Chinese economy. And particularly, they cannot find any positive development and momentum that could shine the light through the so-called negative pessimism, so that they have to forbid and ban and all those negative comments right at the beginning in order to stem the negative trend that's going forward. So I think that it reflects basically not only the lack of the confidence about for the Chinese official about their economy themselves, but also they just cannot control where the economy is going. So instead of the managing and trying to work on the economy, they started to work on the people's perception and hoping that the perception will create a reality, so that they will be able to create a new, in their view, the positive economic momentum right there.
Right, it's about framing, as we understand. Actually, the State Security Ministry point out that some people in China ignoring the West's ongoing decoupling and supply chain issues with China are purposefully spreading misleading stories like security over growth. These narratives hinder the progress of China's economy. So would you both say that the Chinese government actually suggests that its economic challenges, even decline, is a consequence of the Western manipulation or pressure?
I don't think it is a result of the Western pressure, but I think Chinese government would like their people to perceive this way. It's a kind of a scapegoat strategy. And although there are many scholars in Western countries, they do think the problem is nowadays in China, it is the security over growth, as you say, or politics over development. That's the real problem. When they try to analyze what's the real problem of the economy, they, besides all the economic factors, they think the most important factor is the politics. But for all these experts, such as Wu Guoguang, who already mentioned this right after the 20th Party Congress, and Pei Mingxin, and Huang Yasheng, he also wrote an article on New York Times to talk about the Chinese Communist Party. They broke the social contract, the so-called social contract with the Chinese people. The contract that is during Deng Xiaoping's era, if you don't talk about politics, the politics won't involve you. But nowadays, Xi Jinping has go back to some kind of totalitarianism during the Mao's period. So the social contract, according to Huang Yasheng, is already broken. And another scholar like Aidan Paulson, I just named a few. Many scholars already pointed out the major problem today is the politics or security over development. But all of them are individual scholars. They are not represented any Western country. So I don't think it is a result of the Western pressure, but the Chinese government really want their people perceived in this way. Yeah.
Is that useful? I mean, President Lai, I know that in recent days, actually in the past 12 months, there are a lot of Chinese illegal immigrants, try to travel to the southern border of the United States. Some say that it is as a consequence of this mismanagement by Xi Jinping. But now, as two of you already mentioned, that Xi Jinping tried to frame the whole thing in a good way, even though there might be some noise out there. But Xi Jinping wanted to see those all gone. So how's the effect of this kind of control, top-down control by Xi Jinping?
I think especially when the Ministry of State Security would like to blame to the West or the other countries and for the problem of the Chinese its own economic issues, which means that they try to find some scapegoat, and in this sense that the U.S.-China economic competition and as well as the technology competition, that become an easy one for China to blame somebody else rather than itself for the malign management about its own domestic issues. So that is the usual practices, number one. But another interesting phenomenon is that the Ministry of State Security came out and pointed out that the so-called security over growth, that's a problem. when people talk about how the security overgrows, they mention two things. First of all, it's Xi Jinping. He would like to emphasize the security as the important when he mentioned about Chinese overall national goal. But the another aspect that when people talk about security overgrows is that the Xi Jinping actually tasked the Ministry of State Security and as the overarching state apparatus to oversee a lot of other things, including the state state councilor on the economy part. So that when the Ministry of State Security came out and particularly mentioned that not only the U.S.-China the competition, but also the accusation about this security overgrowth, that is not only false but also itself contribute to the economic wound in China. Ministry of State Security would like to mitigate the problem should be associated about itself to others. So this is also can be seen as a Ministry of State Security, its own measure against the foreign criticisms. Because right now, if you look at all the other international observers, they do tell you that in China, the only ministry that matters is not foreign ministry, it's not even the defense ministry, it's a Ministry of State Security. They are managing everything. So that by Ministry of State Security came out particularly to attack that particular narrative. To a certain extent, you can also say that Ministry of State Security is trying to protect its own turf, its own reputation.
So it's more like an internal struggle and try to win the hearts of President Xi Jinping instead of really for the goods or for the benefits of the whole CCP. So I think that's a paradox of as you mentioned, totalitarian countries like China is. Sometimes we do see that in democracy as well, but because democracy is a transparent system where we have the election on a regular basis, so we can see what's fought within the system, but it's harder for us to see that in authoritarianism, right? Okay, the next question is actually about the Chinese government has been withholding economic data following the disclosure of record high youth unemployment rates of 21.3% in June 2023. Subsequent updates ceased of sudden. The Wall Street Journal notes that understanding the current situation of China's youth labor markets now relies on speculative rumors, presumably aligned with the government's intentions. Is the Chinese government determined to keep economic data under wraps until there is evidence of economic recovery? So that's my first question. Maybe President Lai, you can still continue to pick up this question to answer.
Yeah, I think that the try to withhold all the economic data, especially about the employment rate, because the last one we saw by the government and about the 21.3% of the employment rate for the youth is on June. But if you look at the graduation date, basically that is the end of June and the early July, which means that later on the employment rate is got to be much higher because we have a flash, a lot of fresh students directly out of college. They would like to seek for a job and they cannot find it. But another interesting phenomenon also my friend told me is that the economic consultancy company, whether or the accounting office, they need to go to China to do the due diligence. And right in China, they immediately have been handed out the list of the questions you should not ask. They should not ask about, and the number one, many of them told me, number one is they should not ask about economic data. Whether that's gross data or whatever data, you should not ask. And not only they are tasking those people do the due diligence, not to poke around to ask about the economic conditions, but the people in China talk to them. Also, because of this, could risk about giving a state secret. So that is a very, very new phenomenon that the people start to discover. That is another evidence that the Chinese just could not, it seems to not have the hold about what the current condition is. They know the economy is bad, but they do not know how to deal with it. So that instead of the trying to focus on the finding solutions, they are trying to focus on concealing this data.
Right, so the censorship, so to speak, is from macro to micro. Actually, as President Lai earlier mentioned, that lacks of confidence on the parts of maybe not only Xi Jinping, but also the whole government itself is the center reason for us to understand why the censorship comes down to that individual level people. What about you, Professor? So how do you interpret these the lack of confidence in the Chinese CCP, the government itself, that does not want to make the data more open? Do they think that the economy in China is not going to fare better in the near future, or what do they think?
I think the real problem in China's economy now is very serious. I think it has been a long-time problem of the structure, because it's a transitional economy, and all things actually, the financial system is still monopolized by the state sector. So the resources has been distributed quite distorted. So as a result, whenever you would like to have more expansionary monetary policy, all the financial resources will go to certain sector, like the state-owned enterprises and the real estate development. So you see, for last 1 decade, when you have more expansionary policy, all these resources go to these sectors. So you have a lot of asset bubbles. So they really want to resolve these asset bubble problems. When you want to resolve, the economy will cool down. So you don't have any other choice except you really have a real market reform. But if you really want to have a market reform, you also have to have a political reform. That means you have to give up the political monopoly of the Communist Party. That's Xi Jinping would not do that. So the problem is very serious. So now they can do is to manage people's perception.
Yeah. Okay, if that's the only way, I don't think that's gonna be very comprehensive, because individual person has individual thinking, which is hard to control. Actually, Professor Tao mentioned about the approach to tackle the recession in China. I think that's a good start. Now, we all kind of shift the gear a little bit, talk about how China is gonna tackle the problem over their economy. China actually experienced its most significant decline in so-called consumer price index, CPI, this November, since the heights of the COVID-19 pandemic 3 years ago. According to CNN, deflation is now emerging as a new concern for China. Given the deflationary trend, is it likely that Beijing will adopt a relaxed monetary policy, potentially resulting in a further depreciation of the yuan? President.
In terms of the management, the tool they have, Beijing actually tried the deflationary the policy by inflation the whole market in year 2008 and 2009. And that's how we said that the so-called 4 trillion renminbi injection into the market. But at the end, China started to experience all the problem about those, especially since year 2011 and 12. The Chinese, the momentum for growth, it wasn't really there, but all the injection, all the money started to get into the real estate as well as the stock market. And the real estate asset bubble actually came from there. So that you started to see a lot of so-called ghost towns from year 2013 and 12 and 14, and reported widely by the press. And at the same time, the stock market also become the big issues. In Xi Jinping, when he first assumed office, he actually tried to lead the whole speculation of capital away from the real estate. So telling everyone you should go to the stock market. And the stock market, suddenly they have the up and down so rapidly. Then they create the problem within the Chinese economic the confidence. And Xi Jinping immediately seized, tried to introduce the so-called the breaking up the mechanism, so that the stock market cannot go back and forth as they should be allowed for the free market. And then that basically means that the speculation capital in China, the stock market is no longer an option. So that lead everyone go back to the real estate. And so that when we talk about right now the lack of the momentum and deflationary condition in China, but on top of the real estate issues. So you try to inject all the money into it, very possibly that will go to the local government or the central government on the real estate market, because people have no place to invest. They have no place to put their money. And that becomes another problem for them. So that I think that right now China does not have the so-called deflationary monetary policy as its own tool to try to lead itself out of this current issue. The fundamental reform based on the market is very important. But if you look at the Chinese right now, usually the third plenum that should be held this year. But right now we are about approaching the end of this year, and there's no way we are going to hear where the third plenum of the Communist Party will be held. Usually the third plenum of the Communist Party will deal directly with economic issues. Okay. In the past, whether that's the year 2013, the market reform, or even the year 2019, some kind of new measures, but at this time that we haven't heard anything about it. So that's another evidence that the China, I do not think that they know how to deal with it. So they just continue to delay the third plenum until the time that they feel that is right.
Okay, we know that the basic logic of free market is autonomy, right? Of the business person, supply and demand. However, as President Lai mentioned, the situation in China is all about control, and they are used to the control mechanism, and that used to be effective in many ways, and help the economy grow rapidly in the past maybe like 3 decades. But now, simply because of the shocking or the unexpected this pandemic hits, and after the control comes back again and pretty much ruin everything, the logic that Xi Jinping originally set up. So now still my question goes to Professor Tao is that do you think that Xi Jinping is going to adopt a further depreciation of the yen to stimulate the economy, pretty much like, say, Japanese company did to its economic bubble and also depression afterwards?
Yeah, some Western economists, they do suggest China to use extremely expansionary monetary policy to resolve all this bad debt problem. And like a very famous Japanese economist, Richard Gu, he talked about the so-called balance sheet recession. And they could have very expansionary monetary and fiscal policy to stimulate the problem. But I think all these suggestions may work for real normal free market. But China is not a real normal market, just as I say and President Lai already explained. So I think it won't work if you really have a very expansionary monetary policy. All the financial resources will go to certain specific sectors, and it will have another bubbles. That is the Chinese Monetary Authority wants to avoid. And another problem is renminbi depreciation. I think Xi Jinping really don't want to see renminbi depreciation for 2 reasons. First of all, I think for Xi Jinping's China dream, for he to perceive himself or China itself as the second largest power or a great power who can compete with the US, they really want a strong renminbi. And they just want to have some country to perceive renminbi probably is the future international reserve currency. And nowadays, because some countries who are afraid of economic sanction, like Russia, Iran, and some country, their economy is really very unstable. Their currency is very weak. They would like to switch their reserve to renminbi. So Xi Jinping has this dream. And the other issue is if there is really a depreciation of renminbi, the confidence of the market will be even lower. And there probably will be another capital flight from China. For these two reasons, I don't think they can afford depreciation of the renminbi.
Okay, this altogether consider the prominent economist Stephen N.S. Zhang. He actually recently advocated for implementing Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman's theories to revive China's economy. He proposed that the People's Bank of China should target raising the inflation rate to 6% before moderating it to 4% as a means of economic stimulation. Is Zhang's proposed strategy likely to succeed, President?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, that means that you have to inject a lot of money into the market, and hoping that those money will go to the sector that you wanted them. But the issue right now is that people basically lack confidence. It's not the lack of the money. The people they do not want and they cannot spend money, especially for the people, the consumer themselves. They have to prepare themselves for the possible the pension and the illness and everything. And especially right now, the Chinese economy, in a way that the state started to take away all the insurances policies that they usually cover for the medical and others. But right now, the coverage has been shrinked, and so people need to save more to prepare for those conditions. That take away the people's capacity to spend. And not to mention about where they can spend is very limited. So that by injection those money into the market, you are not going to have the trickle-down effect that those money will go to the people.
Thank you, President Lai and Professor Tao, for the great participation in the show. The Chinese economy appears to be struggling, whether it's large or can be saved. The situation is worsened by the CCP's efforts to conceal details about China's economic downturn, a tactic they've used in other past issues. Whether a weakening Chinese economy benefits Taiwan needs deeper analysis in the future. Did you enjoy this episode? Leave us a message and subscribe to Taiwan Talks. See you soon.